Okay. Call this Village of Greenhills Council meeting to order for July 25th, 2023. We have a prayer by Marie. Oh, wait. No. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
Ms. Hermes?
Here.
Mr. Halter?
Here.
Ms. Osmanoglu?
Here.
Ms. Wather?
Here.
Ms. Hudson?
Here.
Okay.
And I'm here.
And Mayor Moore?
Okay, now we have a prayer by Maria Walter.
A clergy here, wouldn't that be more appropriate? Oh, my God.
Lord, we ask you to send your spirit of servanthood upon us here at this meeting this evening to do your work for the benefit of all in our community. We ask you to bless our elected and appointed officials so they may deliberate with wisdom and act with courage. Bless the members of our community who come here to speak before council so they state their cause with honesty and humility. Lord, we ask you to bless us all, that everything that we do here tonight will move us to be welcome one day into your kingdom as good and faithful servants. We ask this in the name of our brother Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And is Jennifer going to speak? Okay, all right. We have a public presentation by Jennifer Weichert from the library.
Thank you so much for giving me just a couple of minutes, and I'm glad everyone's here to hear everything as well. The library is still over in the White Community Building, tucked away behind, so we hope everybody will come and see us soon. If you've been participating in Discover Summer, our summer programs, the deadline to get all of your entries in for the grand prize drawings will be on Monday, July 31st. So if you've been working on your goals, come tell us how they've been going and get your entries in so that you get chances to win really cool stuff, lots of different levels. And there's also completion prizes. So if you complete all 3 goals for up to age 12, you can pick between a color change water cup or a backpack. And then we also have, for the teens 13 to 18, if you completed 5 of the activities on the sheet, you also get a water bottle or a tote bag. So come and see all of the fun stuff we've got going on. Back to school will be around the corner, so a library card's a pretty nifty school supply that it's great to come and see us, so we can sign anybody up for it. We have children's and teen cards. We have, for adults as well. So if you don't have one, you can stop by and see us. We also support our teachers, so they'll be heading back shortly, and they have their own special card that lets them check out up to 200 items. There's absolutely no fees or anything associated with that particular card, although we have done away with many of the other late fine fees as well. So they can request collections of materials for their classroom. If you get 5 teachers to sign up then at your school, then we'll deliver them to you. So you can work through our outreach department downtown, or if you just know that you're going to need some stuff and you want to come to our branch, we can help put them together for you. We do ask a couple of weeks lead time so that we have enough time to put them together. We also have some fun programs coming up. For teens, we've got some back to school pencil pouch decorating on Wednesday, August 9th at 2 p.m. Sign up required because I've only got so many pencil pouches. We also have button making on Wednesday, August 16th at 2 p.m. and that's as many people as who would like to come. We're going to have a couple of game days. We're going to have cornhole on Tuesday, August 1st at 11:30, and we're going to have a hula hoop party at 11:30 on Tuesday, August 8th. Everyone knows about Barbie and Oppenheimer, right? So Barbie Bingo and Bubbles is going to be on August 26th at 11 a.m. for kids. It's a Saturday. And we also have a display in the library, so if you'd like to come and vote for Barbie or Oppenheimer, you can make your opinion known. And the last one is very exciting, and I'm very happy to be able to share that local author J.T. Townsend is going to be able to come to Greenhills on Tuesday, August 8th and he will be discussing the murder of Patty Rebels on the 60th anniversary of that event. So I'm looking forward to that one. Anybody who has any interest in local history, I think that's going to be an excellent program. So we'll look forward to seeing as many of you as possible.
What time is that program?
6:30,
And the date?
August 8th, Tuesday.
Okay.
Question?
Thanks.
Thank you so very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to give everybody an opportunity to speak, to limit each to 4 minutes of speaking time.
How many minutes?
4 minutes.
We have a second?
Second.
Need to poll council for that, or just the boys?
Well, you might as well poll council since two of them are not going to be
Okay.
participating.
So we have a motion.
Ms. Walther?
Aye.
Mr. Halter?
Aye.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Ms. Hudson?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes to limit speaking in the public hearing to 4 minutes. And if anyone needs to use the restrooms are on that side of the fireplace, and you go back. Anybody? The lights are on. Okay, so you want to go ahead and start?
Okay, I sure do. We'll get started on the public hearing, which is to get comments from you, the property owners that are part of the proposed historic district. And thank you all for coming. This is a great turnout. And there has been through this whole process. So that is much appreciated when you're working on something as big as this. It has been a long process to get to this point, and sadly we had COVID and a million other things, but we are here in what I consider to be a pretty exciting moment for Greenhills. It seems that guidelines are, of course, the most interesting or of concern to our property owners. I do want to take some time to go ahead and review them, because in follow-up to the meetings, property owner meetings that we had, there were significant changes to the guidelines to make them affordable, and so I think that's a good thing, but still at the same time be able to keep our character that makes us who we are. Our designation is very rare, and the local guidelines are intended to keep us in compliance with the National Historic District. So I'm going to go ahead and take the time, if you have a copy or if you've seen it, of the guidelines, and we have some copies up here for anyone who didn't receive one or wants a copy right at the corner. Feel free to walk up. I'm not going to hit all of them, just the ones that I've either had calls or heard people talk about or ask questions. Still just, lack of knowledge, although we've tried to get them out there as much as possible, but I'll follow along. The first one being exterior materials. The hope is that you will retain or repair the original exterior materials, and they list the different kind that have been used in the past, as well as some means of addressing issues if you have some repairs to be making or replacements. Architectural features such as windowsills, transoms, and door trim ideally should not be removed or covered to maintain that character. During the meetings, paint color, surprisingly, was something that most people wanted. So for us, they're neutral shades such as white, beige, or gray. And the contrasting colors, we came up with no more than 3 different colors, but you can do contrasting colors like on your trim and things like that. We're working on a packet that would go out to the property owners. Again, if you're not sure what a neutral color is, we just give you some examples to help you along with that. So you can hold your comments till you can. So windows is one that I do hear about a lot, a little bit of misunderstanding. I think replacement windows are permitted, vinyl windows are permitted, but aluminum clad wood or fiberglass resin windows would last longer. Double hung windows with 1/1 sashes may be used for dwellings. The big thing is to retain and restore the actual, like the size of the opening that the window is in, so you don't have like a window that fills up 3/4 of it and then you have a board or something, or, put brick that, that's not good. That kind of hides the original character of it, so the window should fill that original window opening. Same for multi-unit buildings. If windows are being replaced, make them consistent throughout the building. Our guidelines do go ahead and tell you how you can restore original steel windows. I won't go into that process, but it's here, and if you need more information on that, that would certainly be, I know, a labor of love, but it would be in keeping with our historic character as well. For commercial and institutional buildings, like the shopping center, community buildings, school, churches, retain existing historic metal and glass block windows, and if necessary, match the originals in size, material profile, and configuration. I hope we have some representatives from those places today. In the shopping center, is anybody here representing the shopping center today? No? Okay. Then I'll skip over the storefronts. Doors, again, it's a lot like windows. Retain the original door openings facing a street. Things like the Victorian-style doors with stained or leaded glass, that's not really in keeping with the original Greenhills or the time period. Door hoods, those are the little porch covers, usually flat, white. They should be maintain original door hoods or replace in kind to match. One of the issues with those has been the flat roof, so it is acceptable to tilt it slightly so it can drain. Which will probably give it a longer life. Awnings, ideally would be permitted only on commercial buildings. I do wish somebody from the shopping center was here, but the colonnade, the flat roof colonnade with the square brick columns that are in really poor shape right now, need to be replaced at the shopping center. That's an important element for us. Roofs, retaining the historic roof line or parapet. And again, we outlined some alternatives, like you're not required to put slate. There are slate look-alike shingles now on the market. We're lucky, I guess, because there are so many different products out there right now that can help us duplicate what we originally had instead of the original. That can be quite expensive. Let's see, preserve original porches and breezeways. New decks are limited to rear elevations to minimize their visual impact. And I think that's actually a code issue right now anyway, that isn't really new. Utility systems, your air conditioning units, things like that should be inconspicuously placed, avoiding visibility from a street if possible. ADA ramps, that has come up quite a bit. They are permitted. If a doorway requires widening for access from a ramp, obviously this says consider one, maybe not the front door, but we realize there are people who do only have their front door. If you're like 2 middle units in a 4-unit building, you're only going to have the front door, and that's, we'll certainly work with you to make sure that happens. Let's see, I don't want to go too long here. Actually, the last one I had was on garages and garage doors. And when you replace your garage, the 16-panel steel door is recommended. If you want to put windows, go with a single-pane rectangular window in your garage. So I hope I've touched on some of them that may be of concern to you. Oh, I know another one. I heard, especially recently since we mailed out the notices, for people who are in non-contributing buildings like the Drummond House or Berwick Court would be 2 examples right off, because they're wondering why they were invited. Well, they are very much, right in the middle of the historic district, and we have to be certain that they don't do anything on those properties that would jeopardize the character of the historic district. So that's why, any changes to those would hopefully be, keep their current style or make them more compatible with the historic buildings, should that happen. Trying to think if those have been the big ones that I've heard from property owners about. And I'll also tell you at this point in time, because since council had the first reading of the legislation, the guidelines have been in effect. And I don't know if anybody's here who has actually complied with them already, but thank you. I hope you found it a painless process. And I think we've done 5 so far, and I will tell you the property owners have just been remarkable. They were willing to comply, and I saw the benefit of the historic district to do their work that they had to do in compliance with that. So that was awesome. We've also had some code violations where I've had to send the guidelines out to them as well to follow as they make their remedy their code violations, and we're having good luck with that as well. So that is much appreciated. And I think I just wanted to touch on those things before you open it up in case I answered anybody's questions at this point.
Okay, all right. All right, if anybody wants to come up, give us your name, and you don't need to give us an address, but you can let us know whether you're in the historic district for sure.
Can I ask you for you to touch base on the shopping center, since you skipped over that? It would be of interest for the rest of us to know what exactly you had in mind.
Yes, you should come to the podium.
You want to come up here and make your comments or not?
No, I'm asking
Oh, okay.
the COVID.
Anybody else want to come up and ask any questions?
Yeah, you can sign up here, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to give you a generous 4 minutes, which is a little, I think that may be a minute more than we normally get, but because you have investment in this, you need to be up here talking.
Did she use enough for 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start first by, who exactly is on your committee that drafted, and is this your ordinance, this right here?
You first have to state your name, and if
It's
you're-
already on here, sweetheart. It's Pat Anvil, 32 Chalmers Lane, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45216, PAANDWAN, @gmail.com, 513-368-7956. Does that suffice?
Well, actually, you must have missed what the mayor asked for, and he also asked that you indicate whether or not you live in the historic district.
Oh, I absolutely live in the historic district, and I actually filed an injunction to try to get the village to stop tearing down buildings. First off, I'd like to know exactly how many structures, how many homes are you affecting by this? There's like 35, 40 people here. How many homes are actually being affected?
Well, I could tell you we sent out over 400 notices.
Seriously, and you think this
Property
is a good
owners.
turnout? Are you going to have a follow-up meeting?
We're not required to, and everybody received it by certified mail. So I think a lot of people were well aware that this meeting.
Is there a reason why you didn't send out your guidelines with that notice?
Our
Because people come in
guidelines-
here 4 minutes
Okay.
before the meeting
Yeah,
starts.
you know, the guidelines have been out and about a lot over these last
Yvonne,
years.
I don't believe that.
Well, that's
The next thing
your
up
problem.
is, why did you include all these extra properties on Gambier and Drummond and then refuse to put them in the local historic district? You can wait to answer your question, so you chewing up my time. Why was it actually established in June of 2023, and this is July of 2023, and you're just now asking us what we think about it? Your guidelines are supposed to be affordable. I take big issue with your color limitations. That is outrageous. Why were the properties that are actually in the historic, some of these people did not receive notices. How are you going to cope with that? Why was that
How
done?
do you know that?
Oh, you know it.
Curious.
You know.
No, I
Why
want
do
to
we
answer
have-
that. I
Why
wanna
do we
answer
have
that question.
trampolines in the front yard of properties?
Because they're
Why do we
permitted.
have deteriorated painting at Chalmers 17, that entire building, and Chalmers 26, that have been reported umpteen times in the last 3 years? If you can't enforce that, why in the hell do you think we should have faith in you to enforce anything? What about ACs in the front windows? How are we supposed to report this? Are you going to do like other communities and actually put numbered reports online so we can track what in the hell it is that you're accomplishing? How about giving us the information on who exactly is on your committee? Why is this big secret that all of a sudden we get notice that says, hey, we talked to some people and we came up with 3 colors for your buildings, live with it. We're shoving this down your throat. Who's going to enforce this? Is this another person with one name, like your building inspectors that you've been hiring that only give the name Bob or Joe? There's no way to connect with them. There's nothing online to show us that we filed complaints.
My goodness.
You sit there, you have no
Yeah,
accountability.
it's so inaccurate what you're saying.
I
Ms.
want to know why the
Van Loan.
tree at Drummond House
Ridiculous.
sat there for weeks, possibly months,
No, it
with
did
dead
not.
limbs there that were not dealt with.
Ridiculous.
Who exactly is your present code enforcer? Now I'm awaiting answers.
Is there time up?
No, well, I don't know.
No, let her have, she has 4 minutes.
Are you going to give an
You know,
answer?
there were so many inaccuracies in what you said, I wouldn't know where to start.
Well, let's just you should take a minute to take notes.
Okay, your time is
Ma'am,
up.
your job
You-
is
you
to
go over
respond to the
same
public.
thing. You were saying
Your
the same
job
thing
is-
3 years ago, Ms.
Okay.
Van Loan. You never
Exactly,
changed.
so why haven't you dealt with
Okay,
it?
your time is up. Thank
Oh,
you.
yes, I hope I inspired some people to be vocal. Thank you.
Okay.
She's the same person that took
I'm
most
sure
of you
you
to
impressed a
court.
lot of people in your
Yeah.
talk. Okay, anybody else?
Oh,
You want me to sign this sheet, or how's that work?
if you could.
All right, I'll sign it. So my name is Tom Hoffman, and I've lived here for almost all my life, so that's 56 years. And first, I want to start off by, saying thank you to you all for your service to the village. I think it's an honor, and rightly so, that Green Hills was recognized as a National Historic Landmark. We think it is a very special place too, our family does. Now to my comments. Our background, my wife and I made a conscious decision to stay and raise our family in Green Hills since 1990. In each property that our family has resided in, all of which were in the historic district, we have always tried to maintain and invest in improving those properties so that we'd be able to continue to stay here. We've invested a lot of money, way more than the properties are worth. And maybe that was smart, maybe that was not smart. Based on what I know of the proposed guidelines, many of those improvements probably would have been denied or included a significantly greater burden in getting approval, or quite possibly just unaffordable. When we made our decision to stay and invest, the proposed regulations accompanying governing body is not what we signed up for. It wasn't here. I think we've been very responsible in what we've done and what we've tried to do. I have no issue with the boundaries as drawn if the intent was only to include the area originally developed within a time frame of the origination of the village. I don't know that that was the intent. As you're aware, the boundaries of Green Hills far exceeded what is considered and drawn as the historic district. Why don't the boundaries include the entire boundary of what's left of the original boundary of the historic Green Hills? If these new regulations are to be applied, they should be applied to all of Green Hills, including the newly developed areas, as they were all part of the original boundaries of the historic Green Hills. If the Regulatory Approval Board is created, it should consist only of those, and this is my opinion, who live in the historic district, as they are the ones directly affected. Others, experts, whoever they need to call it, can be called in. They can be consulted. They can give their input on what needs to be done or to help give input on decisions that are made. But the decision-making should be left to that board and people who have skin in the game.
Exactly.
The new regulation should only be applicable to those who choose to move into the historic district, as then they know what they're signing up for. Maybe an opt-in or an opt-out is warranted for those of us who have been here a long time and not what we signed up for. There has to be more options. I know of one example where a resident brought up 12 color swatches for paint. I saw them. These were in no way extreme. They were told none of them would be acceptable.
That's not true.
Right. My wife and I are not in favor of the current stringent regulations or the process of abdicating decision-making responsibility to a board as part of designating boundaries. It seems to be two very different things. I think they have to be handled differently. For the first time, when discussing this impact and some of the improvements we were planning on doing, we're faced with the possibility that, you know what, we're probably not going to be able to do these based on the guidelines as given. And for the very first time, we were discussing what we're going to do. Are we going to stay or are we going to go? And that's a really tough thing for us because we've been here and our whole family's been here for a very long time. So just so you know, it is very emotional that we've actually had that discussion. We're having that discussion. We're deciding what we're going to do. I just want to close by thanking you for your time, your service, and consideration. Thank you.
Mr. Hoffman, you were talking about some things that you were considering. Can you maybe elaborate what one or two of those things might be?
Yeah, sure. So we were looking at adding some shutters around our windows on the visible sides of our building, none of which would be acceptable, but we've already purchased them. They were sitting in my garage, so I'm probably not going to be able to put them up. That's a very minor thing, but still an expense that we probably won't. Anyway,
It's your
I
community.
mean, you know, we just put a huge addition on our house. We think we've improved it significantly. We did that so we could stay here and make it nicer for our family. I'm not sure how that would have been received or how much more difficult it would have been to get that through.
Okay, thank you.
Again, I appreciate the
thank you.
time.
Thank
Mr. Hoffman, thank you so much for your
I wanted to comment
comments.
on the colors. I do want to comment on the colors because I think more than 12 were submitted, maybe like 19 or 20. Only 2 did we identify as possibly not compliant. One was a kind of an aqua blue and one had a hint of a yellow to it. Everything else was acceptable, so.
Why are there 3 of them here that you're
Okay, sorry.
Make a comment also in the guidelines with the federal people as it relates to being able to include the whole boundary.
The district itself, you mean?
Right. Well, he's talking about the whole Greenhills project, basically. It covers the whole town, except the federal government guidelines didn't look at it that way.
Oh, right. They only looked at the oldest sections.
Basically the
Yeah,
original
the original
stuff.
portion.
Okay.
Evening, friends. My name is Father Alex McCullough. I'm the pastor of Our Lady of the Rosary, among other parishes here in Greenhills. I guess that's 15, 17, and 19 Farragut. Over the last few years, Our Lady of the Rosary has run a capital campaign and completed internal renovations to the tune of somewhere $250,000, $300,000. The internal renovations have been very well received, and external renovations always remain a possibility, especially as the Archdiocese goes through an archdiocesan-wide reorganization, restructuring under Beacons of Light. Our Lady of the Rosary has an October count of parishioners attending Mass that has rolled back about 35 years' worth of slow decline in the church because of the additional Spanish Masses and continued evangelization efforts. So there are more people attending OLR now than probably at any point since before I was born. I don't know. I'm not that old. But anyway, there are currently no master plans in the works because we are still going through the discernment process and all these things. But the reality of the situation is that the school building, the Catholic Center, is not necessarily, as a structure that was built to accommodate first a church and then a school, and now is just sort of retrofitted for our parish activities to the best of our ability. I don't think anyone would say that it is necessarily the best facility that we could possibly have for the needs of catechizing our youth, of hosting community events. It's riddled with asbestos. There are any number of issues that exist just in buildings of a certain age. And so while there are no current plans to make significant structural alterations to the school building, if someone were to hand me $7 or $8 million, it would certainly be on the table and something that we might be looking at in the next few years. And so as the pastor of the local parish, one that is growing, one that is vibrant, and one that seeks to be a good part of the community, I found the parts of the regulations listed under demolitions or significant alterations to be vague and to possibly hinder us from doing things that we would like to do for the sake of our parish and for our parishioners and for the community. So thank you for your time. Thanks for allowing us to make the comment. I just wanted to say that I think that the work of the church is ultimately good for the community of Green Hills and any community we find ourselves in, and I'm concerned about the possibility of restrictions on altering our facilities for the sake of our mission. So thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Becky Hoffman. My husband and I, we live over on Brompton. We both are also lifetime residents of Green Hills. And I actually live in my grandparents' house, our starter home that is now 22 years in the making. We consciously also made that decision to stay within the village because it's where we both were born and raised, and we love the village, and we do appreciate your time and your efforts to make our village a better place. My question is, I think some of these guidelines are to an extreme. I agree with some of them. We just replaced our siding on our house because we had to, not because we wanted to. We replaced it with vinyl because we could not afford hardy board. My husband and I both work. We both work full-time. We're both in healthcare. But we cannot afford that because, one, of the taxes we pay here. Two, because we send our children to private school because of the school district we live in. Yet another reason why I believe you don't have young families in this village, but that's a whole other issue. My question is, who is going to be enforcing these? We have seen the building guy driving around eating his breakfast sandwiches, looking at houses. Now, yes, you can see peeling paint. We've had a neighbor who does a wonderful job taking care of her home get busted for peeling paint because it was winter, and who goes out and paints in the winter? So who is going to be enforcing these, is my question.
Planning Commission will be reviewing those, and then me. I'll be enforcing it.
We don't have an inspector now?
Pat, this is my turn, not your turn, my turn.
The manager said.
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear what you said.
It would be out of my office. If it wouldn't be me, it would probably be my code enforcement officer, but the person making the decisions will be the entity is Planning Commission. And yes, somebody mentioned it, it would be with the advice of a historic consultant.
Okay, so we also walk. I'm sure many of you have seen us. We walk a lot in the village. And we were literally just kidding last night that we were going to start carrying weed spray with us because the amount of weeds that are growing up people's houses, along the curbs, all that kind of stuff. Who's supposed to be taking care of that? Is that the homeowner's responsibility or the village's? Those kind of little things is where I think you need to start before you say you can't paint your house blue, only gray or white. You know, you can't do this because you can't get the little stuff done. I feel like we need to start little and then go bigger and build on it, and then you're going to get the community support around it. So that's just my opinion, being a lifetime resident of Green Hills. And again, like my brother-in-law said, we are contemplating, are we going to stay if these pass? Because we will not be able to afford to keep the maintenance on our 80-year-old plus home. So. Thank you.
Mrs. Hoffman, thank you for your comments, and I do agree on some of the points that you have made as well.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Thank you.
I would like to mention something about code enforcement. When we first moved here, our gutter broke, and it was literally 2 days later that we received a letter. And I was like, wow, are they on? I barely got to see it, and we took care of it right away. And I mean, I was glad that that had happened. The code enforcement has been a huge battle. There's a bunch of factors that play a part of that on how our community has changed. It is something we are equally concerned about and trying to do what we can to address.
And as a normal course of the event, we send out letters regularly to people who are not mowing their yards. And then once the process goes through, we end up having to mow their yard for them or pick up their trash, whatever the situation is. It's a process that you have to go through. It's not something you just show up and you do it. And then we back charge them on their tax duplicate. So, I mean, it happens, and it happens regularly. We'll mention it at meetings on a regular basis, so.
And
So-
if I could add to that, garbage and garbage can placement, wrong kind of garbage cans, all sorts of can screening absorbs an enormous amount of time every week, as does grass. But we also, in addition to the letters Mr. Lee was referring to, we also use door hangers that get a little bit more rapid response. But, I mean, we do hundreds of those. So hopefully your cans are hidden. If we weren't able to spend so much time on that, we have one person who works 25 hours, a pay period, on code enforcement. And then I too spend an enormous amount of time on either code or zoning or a combination of both at some of the bigger issues. So
How about a volunteer committee that could go and inspect from the street and mark
Well-
things up so that
Well-
you have the...
It's my turn, Pat. It's my turn.
You don't start.
Okay.
I'm starting now.
That's good.
Great. My name's Anna England. I am 41 and I am a long-term resident. I lived, I forget how many years, until graduation at 5 Burley, and I own 6 Burley Circle. A little bit of history. I am a single family homeowner. I have air units in the front windows of my house. My question is to you, if I'm going to be enforced on that, what are you going to provide for me financially so I can move my air conditioning units? I hate the look of them in the front. However, no other windows will accommodate window units in the back of my home. They are all slider windows that have all been replaced, and I do not have the money to replace those windows. I also do not have $10,000 to insert central air in a 2-story home. 6 Burley Circle has a large addition, 2-story addition, so it would be about roughly $10,000 just to put central air into my house.
And your boiler heat too in that building as well, right? Yeah.
And the guidelines don't require anybody, were they to pass, to like change things. There would be no requirement like you've got to get rid of them kind of thing. And if you
It's
have to replace them, you
grandfathered
can
in.
replace them.
You're not required to change
Right,
your...
it's not a requirement
Okay.
as soon as they pass.
And I will piggyback off of Becky Hoffman as well. So I apologize if the homeowner's here, but I am constantly dealing with a home that's not the one that's connected to me, but currently next to me. It is a renter. They are a hoarder. It is horrible on the back. I have called multiple times, and I am completely always told if it's not viewable from the road, it's not our problem. Well, it's my problem.
We can't do anything about it if it's not viewable to the code
My
enforcement
problem
officer.
is I want to put a privacy fence up. I don't have the funds completely to do it, and if I do it, I have to look at the unfinished side while they get to look at the finished side. So explain that to me. If I'm putting it up because their property looks like crap, why can I not look at the finished side?
That's the way our code's written. So we'd
Then
have to change the code.
maybe it needs to be changed.
That's a current code
Okay.
regulation, not
And the
a-
other question that I have is if I have built a shed, I moved it, because I moved it off the original from where the Walker family built it back in the 80s, I had to get a permit. However, the house next door that are renters have built, my kids call it the body shed because we're not sure what it's for. They have a greenhouse. They have rickety fences that they've built, and there's no permits needed. So again, is it because it's not viewable?
The permits are needed. It doesn't mean that everybody gets the permits.
I didn't try to get a permit, I'll be honest, and somebody called me out, and I had to get a permit for a piece of a fence that I was just replacing. So again, to
She invites
piggyback,
the inspector on her property.
to piggyback off of Becky, I feel like it needs to start with the smaller things. Like if you want our buy-in, then why are we not enforcing the smaller things, you know, especially unfortunately for the homeowners that rent out their property that might be doing a drive-by once every 2 years and they don't even know. I mean, the house next to me literally has blinds ripping out of the windows. If I were to go to sell, which at this point, I have 4 years and I'm done because I cannot maintain, you know, I can currently, but if this keeps going and more is into, I'm not going to be able to maintain. I'm here because I want my girls to go through private schools, and that's their home. My home is across the street. My brother lives parallel to them. We are the Raymond family, legitimately a Burley Circle. And if they're not there, why should I stay? There's no reason to be here, unfortunately. Okay. Thank
Ms.
you.
England, thank you for your comments, and I'm going to ask some questions on behalf of your comments. If the air conditionings, Ms. Kovac, needs to be replaced, the ones that she has now, they are grandfathered in, but if they break down, if she needs to replace it, where would she find herself in that situation?
I believe she could replace it.
She will be able to replace them if we are in August, the window units go down.
Yeah.
What is her
I believe
recourse?
she could replace it. It wouldn't be ideal, but she could replace it.
Okay.
And as far as the inspector not being able to see the back or some of these issues in the other property, if you invited the inspector onto your property where he could view that, then
Yeah.
that would be ideal,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we've had that in a number of times, because the inspector can't go on to that other
That
person's
property.
property or on private property without permission.
Especially with sheds.
Yeah.
And how do you get in touch with the inspector?
You can email him, you can call the office.
Is his email online?
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, you've had your 4 minutes?
Got it.
Thank you.
Got it. When you're ready to start.
Thank you.
Tanya Enderly, lifetime Greenhills resident. I am currently at 4 Andover. I was raised on Gambier Circle. To piggyback off of Becky Hoffman's, walking the Greenhills, have any of you ever gone out to actually walk?
Despite the sarcasm, quite often.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I have very hard time walking my dogs, just because they are French bulldogs and you can't be outside very long. So we take short walks. So I cut through the green space in the A section. But it's very hard to cut through the green space because the sidewalk is unwalkable. Okay? So who is responsible for that, and why are you not starting with
Small things.
the areas that you're responsible for, so that when we see that, we're like, oh, okay, we'll do some improvements. Hate to tell you, but I can't do any improvements because single mom. Yes, granted, both of my boys are gone, but I still only have the one income, and these improvements cost more than what I have coming in. So my question is, if you expect us to improve, why are you not out improving? Because I walk the ACE block. The weeds in the street, not just, in people's yards. There are weeds growing up in the middle of the street in some areas.
What?
Like I said.
What street is that you're talking
The
about?
A section. Walk around the A section.
Oh, the A section, okay.
And yes, the sidewalks are unwalkable. I have to walk in the middle of the street because I can't walk on the sidewalks. I'll either slide in the mud or there are no sidewalks, you can't see them.
There we go. It's all forever.
Are we
Thank
aware
you.
of what she's talking about?
Yeah.
Is that one over in Ashby?
Oh, I don't know. There's one on Andover as well. That's
Okay.
between Brownsville and lack of service work.
Hi, Jennifer Hardy. I live at 11 Avenel Lane. My husband's a lifelong resident. There family owned the hardware store. I have been a Greenhillian. I went to Greenhills High School, but I live south of the lake, so I have lived here over 41 years. My problem is, yes, you sent out certified letters this time, but you didn't do it when you started the process. And I believe that all the homeowners that were going to be affected should have been surveyed, invited personally
They were.
to this.
They were.
They were.
Well, I wasn't.
Yeah, you were at one of our meetings. You signed the attendance sheet.
Yes, I was at one of those meetings,
Right.
but not when that process started. That's what I'm talking about. We weren't given this invitation. It was in the journal. Well, if you don't read the journal, how are you supposed to know about it? So that's the
You
first
need a
thing.
direct mail.
Second thing is, my husband's already retired. I'm close to retirement. If we go to sell our house, I worry about anybody wanting to buy it because they're going to have to comply to all these restrictions, and I don't know if somebody's going to want to do that. We have always maintained our home. We have red shutters, but we have always maintained our home, and I think that it adds to our neighborhood. And it is bothersome to me that after 37 years in this house, we were in a townhome, now we're going to have to comply to all these regulations if we want to paint, if we want to replace those shutters, if we want to replace our windows. We're going to be retired. We're going to be on a limited income, and that's bothersome to me. I agree with Tom. I didn't vote for this 37 years ago. I didn't vote for that, and I don't think that we should have to do. And I don't believe that all of you, I know Maria was excluded because she had a conflict of interest, and so I heard she couldn't vote. You all don't have a conflict of interest, but you're going to benefit from this historic district, but you're not paying like we're going to be paying.
How are we going to benefit?
Because supposedly it's going to increase property values, et cetera. That's what I was told. That's what I read.
And if it does do that,
We're not going to benefit from it because we're going to have to pay more for it. I have air conditioning. I'm in a Cape Cod. I could not, like Becky, I couldn't afford to have central air put in.
You don't have to change it either.
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is if I wanted to put a permanent unit, I would have to go out the front. There's no other way to go because I've got attic space. So you're limiting things without thinking about the cost to the property owner, and that is bothersome to me. So I don't know. I'm totally against this. I don't think it needs to be done. I think that ordinances need to be enforced. I don't know if you've been down to Avenel, but the two corner homes are atrocious. You've got a gutter hanging off the back that has been there, and you can see it from the street.
Yes, you can.
And every year you have to call about them doing painting or
Elderly people.
cutting down, but you can't even see the doors by the end of summer. And so I'm in agreement with Becky and some of the other ones that say, do some of these minimal things, and then maybe people would be, well, I'm never going to be on board to have to pay more for my house that I didn't agree to 37 years ago, but it would be nice. Have you walked along where our children walk to go to the, elementary school? The sidewalks are horrible. They're non-existent.
Okay.
So, sorry. 4 minutes.
Hi, I'm Julie de Blasio. My husband and I live on Brompton. I've owned the property for 18 years, actually this month, but have lived in Greenhills for 26 years. And grew up south of the lake, went to Greenhills, Winton Woods. I was a part of one of the first classes to graduate from Winton Woods. But really just mirroring what absolutely everyone else has said. The Hoffmans, everybody. I know as a I managed branches at PNC Bank for 15 years. And one of the things that I think stuck with me the most that I learned from my mentors was inspect what you expect. And to kind of mirror back to what everybody's saying, we have basic things that are guidelines that we all want as citizens, community member, to people that live in our community, which is not seeing trash, not seeing, there can be peeled paint, but there's houses that are peeling paint. There's, like gutters falling down, shutters falling down, trees. I'm gonna just kind of go to a totally different side. We are not just now a historical landmark, we're a green community. We're considered that. We're known for that. I'm proud of that. I'm an outdoorsy person. My whole street knows. I'm always hiking and doing, and I have pride in that. And when I see some of our old oak and our old beautiful trees with the suckers that are wrapped around them back in the giant green spaces, I've personally called multiple times. I've sent pictures in. It bugs me. We're known for this. The sidewalks that you walk the green space, and not just to get back, even just to get back into those nice spaces. The stuff that's grown over, you have to walk in someone's yard to get around it. Me and my husband have taken equipment up and cut things down. Yes. I pay taxes here. I shouldn't have to pay to do that. If I choose to help my neighbor, but I shouldn't have to pay for areas that are really being serviced by you. And I thank you for what you do, but I think there does need to be a little more foresight in that. And when we do call, I know myself and other people have been made to feel kind of, oh, you're the first person to call about this, when I know like a ton of people that have called about it. And it's just this we're all in it together. And like everybody's saying, maybe if we felt like we were going to enforce, and I appreciate there's only one person that does 20 hours. That's not our problem. I don't mean to sound that way, but that's not our problem. And unless you have a better solution for it, I don't know if it's like Pat said, community people do things. I don't know what the answer is, but that's not our problem.
I have a
And Pat, wait, it's my turn. But and then I think just one other thing I want to say too, and I know you might not mean it in a negative way and it might have to be said, but I think it's something that needs to be taken into consideration, is the piece about the like ADA ramps being put on the front of a house, and that you should avoid that to be in the front. I could get emotional. I have family members that live in this community, and they could have to use something like that. And to be made to feel like you're slighted to the side doesn't sit well with me. And I think that's something that could be looked at a little differently. And I understand that you're not necessarily saying it has to be that way. I get that. But I think there's a better way to go about that. I live in the center. I don't have a side. We don't have that. We would have to go through the front. And I know it would be approved, I'm very sure. But the fact that I'd have to go through an approval process to do that is just there's just some things that I think could be thought out a little bit differently. But I mean, it's a beautiful area, like everyone else is saying. We could move. Me and my husband, we have a 27-year-old, we could move. We don't have to stay in the community. I choose to be here because of the beautifulness, my wonderful neighbors. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. But if everybody starts jumping ship, that could happen eventually, unfortunately. And then I don't mean to sound negative, because there are good landlords. You could be stuck in this community with nothing but landlords. Because I do worry about who will buy my property besides an investor. Okay, thank you.
I agree with you about the ADA. That's something that is very important to me too. And I know that maybe the solicitor would correct me on that, but I believe it's federal law. And I would like to have that out of the equation altogether.
It's federal.
Hi, my name is Bob Augsburger, and I'm one of the investors. And I have owned a condo in the historical district since Dave Moore was the city inspector. That's how long ago it's been, since 1987. And I have watched the degradation of Green Hills over 40 years. When I first bought that condo, I lived there for a couple of years. And I could put a sign in a window on a Saturday morning, and I would have a tenant with a 750 credit score that would cut the grass, trim the bushes, made sure everything was good in less than a day. Green Hills, over that time period, has worried more about, the trash can is out at 2 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock. You're putting it by the side of the porch, and you don't have it covered instead of dragging it around the back every day. You have the wrong bushes. You aren't cutting the grass. It's too tall. It's only 6 inches, and it's not that tall. So as an investor, I don't look to buy property in Green Hills anymore because you guys worry about the wrong stuff. I mean, if you look at the condo that I have, both of them on either side of mine are falling down. Yet I get the notifications the garbage can went out too long. I had a guy that put a dishwasher on the front porch because he was putting a new one in. Got a notice about that. And here we're worrying about what color paint you can paint. Now I got a question for you. So there's 6 units in the building that I own, side by side, okay? I only own the one in the middle. So if my roof needs replaced, are you gonna make the other 5 replace the roof the same color? If I paint my unit, are you gonna make them paint it the same color? If something in the back needs to be replaced, are you gonna make, so it all matches? Because when you go to historical districts in towns that are much greater than Green Hills, those kind of buildings match. The roofs match, the shutters match, the windows match. In my opinion, as an out-of-state investor, you guys got misplaced priorities.
Yes.
Because, I mean, if I could sell my condo and not get killed on taxes, I would have sold it 10 years ago. But I would get killed on taxes. And I don't recommend Green Hills to any investor that I work with because of the experiences that I have. I've been watching the body language of some of you. Some of you could care less about what's going on. You're looking at your laptop. You haven't acted like you're engaged at all.
Me?
If the shoe fits, wear it, babe.
I've asked questions.
I
I've been taking
think that's
notes.
rather rude,
Yeah.
sir.
So here's what I'm going to tell you.
Get to your point.
I'm an out-of-state guy. And like I said, if I could sell my condo today, I would. But I'd get killed on taxes. So I just deal with the nonsense. And if I had to pick a place to live, Green Hills would not be it. So, and I think I'm hearing that sentiment from a lot of the community. And I'm not sure who elected or how y'all got elected or whatever. But if the village voted for all that,
No one's running against them.
you get what you deserve. You get what you vote for. So I wish y'all well, and I've said my piece.
Here's an official peeling paint complaint to make sure that you're on notice. It's 26 Chalmers Lane and 17 through 21 Chalmers Lane. You're on notice.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, as she's signing in, I do just want to say, I don't know if any of you have ever called the office about grass or garbage cans, but I would say the most calls we get revolve somehow around garbage. So that's why we focus a lot on garbage. It's probably the #1 complaint.
Okay, hi. My name is Sharon Wright. I live over on Drummond Street. Been here about 17 years. I've gone up to the office numerous times to complain. I never get a ticket. He's out on the road. We'll have him drive by and look at it, okay? I've complained about laundry strung up on the front porch several times. Nothing's done. It was up about a week ago. I also complained about the camper in the front yard. Windows are open. I know dang well somebody's living in it. Also about grass. I've seen people where they cut the grass in the front and not in the back. I can still see it when I drive down the road. I can see the back of the house. That makes no sense at all. And they said also I can't cut tree branches down, but if it's hanging over my house and nature knocks it down and I got to pay for repairs, I'm cutting it. Okay. Also, one time you guys sent out a survey to help generate revenue in the area. You guys did a great job. You had covered bus stops put in. You had sidewalks put in. Haven't received a survey since then. Got a couple ideas about generating revenue, but I haven't received a survey. So that would be one thing that would be nice. Also, we need playgrounds in the area. There's only one by the library. There's none anywhere else in the housing area, but there's empty lots. So that would give the kids some places to go. That would also help. If you have concerts on a green, add something to it. Have a vendor's night. People love it. They go to Blue Ash. Just something to add revenue for Greenhills to come in, okay? Another thing is, I also called up and asked about a fence. My fence is peeling. I need to replace it. Pull out the post and put new ones in. Not exactly possible because not all fencing is the same length. I asked somebody to come out. Somebody was on medical leave. I'm taking the place. I'll let them know. Month or two later, still waiting for someone to come out and look. Okay? But if I don't get a ticket, you know, what am I going to do? So I'm just wondering, how come you guys don't give tickets for reference to refer back to that, hey, I called you, I need someone to come look at a fence. Yeah, so I just want to know exactly, you know, like where I can put the fence, you know, the height, the whole 9 yards, so I can get it approved and get it going. Okay? Thank you.
You want to comment that there's no ordinance against laundry?
Yeah, the one, we're very familiar with the one hanging up the laundry, and we have yet to figure out anything we can do about that.
The camper's on the same street, too.
They, okay, but addressing that one house, I can tell you that I think they had about 9 other violations that they did address, but we're still working on the laundry.
All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Mulford. My family has been here since the 40s, so we are a longtime resident. And I do live on the historical side. And I sympathize with all the comments that have been made, but I kind of like to bring it back to the big picture, which is Greenhills is extremely unique. There used to be others like us. They no longer exist, but we still do. I think it needs to be protected. I think it needs the historical district to do that. Without that, we could no longer exist either. I mean, any historical place all feel these pains. You know, they all have to do these things for the federal government. So I'm for it. But I would like to ask originally, the shopping center. I don't have information on that, so I would kind of like to see them up to the standards that we all are going to be doing right now.
We would too.
Okay, well, yeah, let's work on that.
Okay, we are.
It's a constant issue.
If I could address that a little bit.
Maryland, there's two villages going at the same time.
Yeah, Mike, if you could hold one second. One of the biggest issues, whether it's complaints, non-compliance, lack of attention to detail, has been the shopping center. And part of this, a strong part of this, is giving us more of ability to affect that. Without this piece, we're less effective in getting the shopping center. It's not promoted so much that way or talked about because we're dealing with one entity versus the individuals. So we do want to change for the better the shopping center, and this does give us way more strength to do that.
My name's Mike Viola, and I own property in the historic district. I guess the biggest question I have is tonight, what is tonight going to change? What does it mean that this becomes permanent? What's going to happen tomorrow that's different than today is the number one question.
Okay, they don't have legislation in front of them tonight, so nothing.
So there's not going to be a vote to make this permanent tonight?
No.
It is truly for feedback.
Oh,
and,
man.
And there's been feedback.
That's what I was worried about. I said it said permanent.
But also, I
That's
think
great.
it's very legitimate to think that if we had no feedback, it's a lot speedier process versus us working through issues that we want to address.
Okay. And something that I had heard, and I don't know if this is accurate, but it was my understanding that some council members that live in the historic districts are unable to vote on this?
Correct.
It's because of a conflict of interest?
Yes.
The way it, Do you want?
Is that just an administrative thing that you have no control on?
Let Jeff.
Okay,
Yeah.
if we can address that.
Yeah, we don't have any control over it. All the elected officials are subject to Ohio's ethics law, and there are provisions in the ethics law that spell out what constitutes a conflict. Sorry, that light. No, don't move. Don't move. You're right where you are. It's perfect. The Ohio Ethics Commission spells out what the rules are, what qualifies as a conflict of interest. We did the research. In general, when a council member is going to vote on, say, like a zoning code that applies to the entire village, they can do that. It's not a conflict of interest. But because these regulations apply to a subset of the entire village, and they happen to live in it, the ethics law says that that's a conflict of interest, so they can't vote on it, they can't participate.
It also affects the layout of the map. If we would have included the original, then nobody could vote. So it doesn't mean that an addendum can't be added to the gentleman's comment earlier to include an additional part later, and then other people won't be able to vote like myself.
Okay. Well, when I read this, it says this is going to be a common sense guideline. I just want to say that historic and common sense isn't always directly connected. I think we all know that. I visited many historic areas, and they're beautiful, and they do retain a certain value for the real estate that's within that area, and I think that's a positive thing. Some of the concerns I have when I read through this, it kind of makes me feel like it's okay to drive a Chevy, but we'd rather have you drive a Mercedes. And where that comes about, like in the windows. It's okay to have vinyl, but we prefer that you do this. At what point do we not prefer anymore or allow a vinyl window? That's one of my concerns. When does it change where it's preferred or avoid that becomes not allowed or not approved? Does that make sense to you?
Correct me if I'm wrong about this, but part of the preferred is you can't, to the gentleman that said earlier, like I didn't buy into this when I got here and moved here. Didn't think it was going to happen. There's no clean way to do it. It's not like we erase the slate and say, okay, here's the rules, and then everybody can move in. You would like it to be that way, and I understand the concern for that. But there is a real desire to do both. Have a community that values its value.
Sure.
This is one of our cornerstone pieces from a value standpoint. Can it be mismanaged? Yes, it can be. That is not our goal. So with that, it's not as black and white as you'd like it to be, but part of that flexibility is to allow people to adjust, to allow things to be grandfathered in, but also some of it is not flexible, and part of my attention is towards a shopping center and non-compliance and those kinds of areas.
Well, I'll give you an example. Your front door on your house. Those of you that own these homes, you know your front door is not 36 inches, right? Right? You know that. And it's quite expensive to order a door that would fit that opening. What would be the harm in making that a 36-inch opening door? If the door replicates what you want it to be. If it replicates your historic feel of the divided light, the panels even, why could it not be a 36-inch door?
That's a good
I
question.
mean, is there a reason for that?
That's a good question. What the planning commission would have to, with the advice of a historic consultant, would have to decide.
But why? That's kind of my point. That's kind of my point. It's a little dangerous, some of the things in here that I read. I mean, I love the idea. I think it's great. I think we should have guidelines. That's great, protecting the historic district. I think that's neat. But, go to roofing. You can have a black or, what are the colors that you can have on your roof? Black or black, something like that?
What was the roofing color?
Brown, green.
Brown's out, green's out, red's out. The only colors that were suggested were black and gray. Which is, I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying when I read through this, I get a little worried that these are not sustainable. They're not written in a way that it's going to work out in the long run. But the roof on the house I have over here is red. It's a clay roof. It's orange. Does that mean that I can't put an orange roof back on it? I think I can, of course, because it would replicate the original. But if somebody else wanted an orange roof, they couldn't do that, even though orange roofs were used as historic roofs back in when they were originally built?
And you know, I don't think anything, I'm certainly can't sit here and say yes or no, but I think the whole purpose is to have discussion.
Right.
And work out what's workable
Right.
for the property owner and what's workable for the
Sure.
historic quality. It's not intended to be, here's what it says, here's
Right,
what
and
you're
I
gonna
agree
do.
100%,
So-
but it's just a little intimidating, even for myself, I've been in real estate a long time. It's a little intimidating to me that feel like maybe I'm losing control of something where I don't want to lose that control. I think everybody probably has that feeling.
Understandable.
And the way it's written sometimes, like I said, it's like, you can drive a Chevy, but we'd really rather drive a Mercedes.
Right.
You
And
know,
I think
so-
the key word is preferable, and we
Okay.
have to make known what is a preference for the historic district.
And it's safe to say that nothing changes as of tonight, right? Nothing
Correct.
becomes permanent, so.
Right.
And to have a further discussion about these things, some of the concerns I have individually about some of the items in here, the best place to do that is where?
Probably, I could take the information. We can meet, review it.
Meet privately and talk about
Sure.
these things, is that, okay, great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. I've got the June 2nd, 23rd Greenhills Journal here, and it says, important reminder for historic district property owners, historic guidelines are in effect within the Greenhills Local Historic District. So my question is, are they or aren't they? Because that's what you've published here, but you're
You're
acting
taking
like they're
someone
not.
else's time, Pat.
I
Sit
don't
down.
think so.
I'm
We need
surprised
to
you
know.
haven't researched that.
We need to
It's
know.
in the historic code.
We need to know.
Hi, I'm Terry Trinan, and I live at 37 DeWitt, which is in the Historic District, and I've lived there for 44 years. My first question is, I'd like to know why the map that you're presenting does not match the map of the NHL boundaries.
That's what you just said.
Yeah, just what I had said earlier. So for some of us to vote, we couldn't be in that, or we couldn't vote on it at all. And we can add to that later as an addendum, but then others that would be in that area would have to be off.
When
It's a
are you
logistic-
proposing that you'll be adding the second edition?
I don't know. We're not firmed up on where we are right now, so I don't know if we would speculate on with the second edition.
But also at
If
the
there-
time of the meeting, some people were very vocal about not belonging to that.
Well, I understand that the areas that are not included at this time are from a different era. They're not the originals of the Greenbelt town that was built first, which I do agree they should have a separate regulation. I do want to make sure that we're including those in a historic district that's uniform and matches the NHL at some point. So I'm glad to hear that, but I would like to see that it's going to be coming very soon. Okay.
Well, I mean, we have to talk about when the next step would be.
Okay. And then what I'm hearing a lot from citizens is this accountability. I think for a long time, the people of the village feel like they have no idea what's going on. We have the internet now. We also have some great services, the One Call and the Facebook page, but I don't think we're utilizing them enough to get information out to people. And I think there are a lot of fears for people as to what the regulations are, how they're going to be enforced, what they can expect, what are the standards that they're going to have to measure up to. I think it would be really good as this process starts, and you already have people who are applying for things, to maybe get stories or examples of how these things are being handled out to people so that they understand, oh, if you have red shutters, guess what? You can put more red shutters on when they start to turn pink. And also, what is the process going to be for people when they want to do something to their home? I know there's an application. I assume it gets dropped off at the office.
Correct.
Then is it turned over to the planning commission for review?
If I could just back up a little bit, there's for residential, you'd start with the zoning determination for residential, and that would be accompanied by the single sheet that we were distributing over here for you to take a look at. That would accompany it, so it can be reviewed at the same time. If it's something very simple, which they have been at this point, it isn't going to planning commission, but when we get to something that's either contradictory to them or to the guidelines or just more complex stuff, that would go to planning commission at that
So
point.
then the decisions are being made in your office, not at the planning commission?
Well, just right now, I mean, if something big comes in, it's probably gonna have to wait until we
We wouldn't want to
get a
make a
district,
minor
so-
thing go to planning commission, which would slow it down.
Okay.
So
We
there
haven't
has to
had
be
any
some
major ones.
determination.
Well, then, I think what we need is some kind of list that the public can see when someone applies to your office and says, I want a paint color selection, or I want to look at shutters, or I need to put air conditioning in. People need to know what's going on. And then it goes to planning commission. Is there an appeal process if you make a decision that somebody really doesn't like? Is there an appeal process?
Jeff, do you recall, I'm sorry, I don't have the whole section in front of me.
Yeah, that's what I
think-
have up on my laptop.
Yeah.
For the people that were wondering, I have the historic district chapter. It's all governed by Chapter 1143 of the zoning code. That part's already been adopted, the procedural steps. Yeah, under 1143.06, that's the regulations for reviewing applications for a certificate of appropriateness, goes to planning commission. And yes, a denial of a certificate of appropriateness application may be appealed to village council.
Okay, so it's not going to the zoning board of appeals, it is going.
Correct.
From planning commission to
Correct.
a council meeting. Okay, and if council still doesn't like it, what are people doing? Suing the village or moving it to downtown?
No, this is, once it gets to the council level and the kind of decision that council is making it's not the same as a Board of Zoning Appeals. Board of Zoning Appeals, if you don't like the decision, you can appeal that to Common Pleas Court. That's not the case here. It's not a quasi-judicial action that would be appealable under that section. So council is the final, is the final appellate level on those decisions.
So in other words, if you don't like the decision at planning commission, come to council and bring all your neighbors with you to support you. And another thing, I know that we are going to be running into issues where people don't know what they should be doing or how to handle. They need something done. It's going to be very expensive. Is the village looking at having any kind of system where we have people who can go out to someone's home and say, here are your options, here's how we can solve this problem? Or is it on the homeowner to figure it out?
In fact, I don't remember if it's on this sheet, but somewhere in the guidelines, it even recommends if it's a larger project to meet with me, meet with the historic consultant. You could even come to planning commission if it's something you want to discuss in advance of pursuing your project. So yes, we're always open to that.
And then one of the things that has been talked about in community development, there's retired carpenters and different people, in some cases elderly people or somebody who can't afford it. We did talk about, this happened prior to COVID, so that got iced, but the idea of there's neighbors that want to help, we want to help. I've helped, other people have helped. We really want to be pulling in the same direction. It's, we don't want to be a brick wall. We want to make this beneficial for everybody, contrary to maybe how it's being painted sometimes.
Okay. Well, I think communication's a really big thing that we need to work on here in the village. And I think as we start with some of these small decisions, take those positive stories, those positive examples, and get them out to citizens so they know this is what I can expect, this is how this process works, here's how it turns out well.
Yeah, and I also think your idea of, and I don't know if it exists, tiering it so that you know what's considered a heavy hitter request versus falling into the lighter category.
Yeah, that would be a really good idea.
I think that would be very beneficial.
So as a planning commission, it sounds like you guys may be facing a lot more work. Are you guys going to start setting a regular time to meet? Or I know right now you meet as needed.
Yeah. We definitely would
Yes.
have to.
Okay.
I mean, that's part of our job, and we have to do that and adjust accordingly.
And then I guess you'll probably create a package that says, hey, if you're coming to us, you have 30 days to get this amount of information to us, and you have a date when people show
It is
up.
new to us as well, but you bring up really good points. It's a matter of how to best roll that out and communicate with people so that, again, it's not, the purpose is not to trip people up. The purpose is to make this as valuable and work with our equity, and not just financial equity, but our equity as a community as much as possible. You know, we got a lot of headwinds with stuff that happens around here, but it's for your good, I hope. Or I don't.
Well, I'm excited about it. I think the potential to start to take care of some of the maintenance issues that everyone's talking about, it's a great tool to get in there and say, hey, this is how this needs to be, looking for the standards, to meet the standards of the community.
I agree.
So I think that's great. All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Monique Mason Halter, Greenhills resident, not in the Historic District. I'm here tonight to talk about legislation that will waive historic preservation and environmental rules. It's called H.R. 3557, the American Broadband Deployment Act. I am asking that you consider all the information that I printed out and gave to you. I also handed out some information to other people here. This bill preempts local government's rights of way, compensation, and management authority, zoning powers, and property rights. This is just a bad bill. It is. Some of the organizations that are opposed to H.R. 3557 include the National League of Cities, U.S. Conference of Mayors, National Association of Counties, and the National Association of Telecommunication Officers and Advisors. Again, like I said, it preempts local government's rights of way, compensation, and management authority, zoning powers, and property rights. It also imposes no obligations on telecom and cable companies to provide broadband to unserved Americans. It would only subvert the intentions of historic federally funded broadband programs by reducing the ability of counties to ensure deployment projects will meet all community needs. It mandates that all wireless sitting decisions be deemed, quote, deemed granted if not acted upon by local governments within 60 days, whereas the federal government has 270 days to act on similar projects. It provides no public safety protections for construction of, quote, deemed granted facilities. It mandates sites be constructed, quote, without any further action by the government, end quote, without notice to the local government or obligation to comply with safety laws. It imposes artificially short timelines that are virtually impossible to meet, creates technical grounds for defeating incompleteness notices that would pause the shot clock, and requires local government to draft, publish, and deliver to an applicant on the same day that the local governing body hears and votes on the application, a written denial decision with reasons. It empowers providers to install facilities where they choose, regardless of local zoning, thus eliminating the ability of local government to balance providers' and neighbors' interests while jeopardizing the capacity of local governments to impose reasonable standards. It also limits all local fees to local governments' objectively reasonable costs, which, unlike the current FCC rules, the local government must justify based on a complex rate-making formula. It removes the ability of state and local franchise authorities to enforce cable franchises by eliminating cable franchise renewals, thereby removing the ability of state or local franchise authority to enforce franchise obligations such as PEG, customer service, and build-out. It grants a cable operator the right to terminate a franchise, but creates no obligation to remove the cable system from rights-of-ways. It grants cable operators the right to provide non-cable services while prohibiting localities from imposing any fees on cable operators' non-cable services. While this doesn't just affect the historic district, it obviously affects all of Green Hills. I'm asking that you contact our Congress member, Warren Davidson, and ask him to not support this bill. And I'm also asking that you contact the Hamilton County Commissioners. That's why I provided you with these documents, so that you could read about all the opposition to this bill. Thank you.
Could you quickly tell us what fees are involved for these applications? Because I know you renew your fee schedule. How much is this going to cost, just to ask a question?
Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
I would like to know the answer to that question. Is there a fee for an application?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Eric Biedenbach. I live at 64 Cromwell Road. One of my biggest questions for our property is why was 64, 68, 70, and 72 included in this district when the property directly across the street, 63 Cromwell Townhouses, and all of the property on Damon across the street was built after us, but all the property on Damon, the Cape Cods, were built after ours. Ours has no intrinsic historical value to the village at all, yet we are going to be subjected to all of the non-contributing building aspects of this. And why, if I want to do something to my house as far as changing the material of the exterior of the house that is going to improve the property value and make it look much more appealing, as an American that did not move into a community with an HOA specifically, did not look for an HOA when we decided to buy a house, am I subject to this? I also
Something worth looking
expanding.
into.
I'm sorry. Could you?
Something worth looking into to
Yes.
eliminate.
Also expanding on a comment from a person, not before me, but before that, as far as putting out positive situations. I think that people should also be aware of the negative situations that happen in an historical district when remodeling and building are involved, and how those are handled on both sides of that fence, because that says a lot about both parties there. And I have been involved in remodeling jobs as a contractor where things can turn into a nightmare real quick.
If you have anything in particular that you'd want us to consider with that experience, I recommend you contact us.
Okay. I don't have any specific things.
I'm just saying, if you do later,
yes.
I think it would be good to know, because we want to know what, if there's things that we're unaware of, we want to know what those are.
Okay. I really wonder why these 4 specific properties were included.
It's a good question.
It's just like, okay, it's convenient to draw a straight line across these, and that's it. Whereas they pretty much fall into all the category of all the properties across the street and around there that were not put into this category.
Were they not put in because of that, getting around council members to vote? Okay.
No.
Specifically, you're talking about 66, 68, 70, and 72.
I'm 64 Cromwell, yes, 64. I think it was the number was drawn wrong on there. That first property is 64 Cromwell.
Okay.
That, and I also think it might be a good idea if you would let homeowners in the historic district opt in or opt out, and put a map of that out to the entire district, and see if after all the people that opt out of this, the people that want to opt in, if they would still vote for it when they see how many people actually would opt out of it.
I think I'm following what you're saying. In other words, basically have each member inside this vote whether they're in.
Yeah, to where you could have, you already have a map there, and you could just color code the properties. These are the people that have a problem with this, these are the people that don't. As a member of the pool and an integral part of the swim team, I know we have problems with wanting to get the bathhouse at the pool, anything done to it. No contractor wants to touch it because of where it is. And it's infeasible to do it. However, when you look at all the other teams that we swim against, now we're proud of our pool, we're proud of our team. We are not proud of that bathhouse. And it is despicable, to say the least. I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Start at home. Yep.
Yeah, this isn't something that we just came up with.
Right. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just, while you're walking up there, how's that? I just wanted to mention that, just so you know, I guess the main purpose of doing what we're doing is so the National Historic Landmark designation, every time, I believe it's about every 5 years, they will resurvey the historic district. And if there are enough changes and it loses its historic qualities to a certain point, then they will take the designation away from us. So it depends what, yeah.
Can you share with us what's the major benefit of doing that besides the fact that it's going to create value, it's going to preserve the community? What is the drive to do this besides just that? So anything else there? Grants?
Well, that's a big one, but if we do put a local district in place through the state, there'll be tax credits and minimal, but some grants available for,
How about certified local governments?
that's what I'm talking about.
Well, call it what it is then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Am I okay to
That's
talk?
the state's designation.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Osmanoglu. I am on city council, or village council, and I do live in the historical district. However, I'm not allowed to do anything because of conflict of interest. I live on Alcott. The reason that my husband and I purchased the house here is because we did like the area, everything it offered, and we did like that Greenhills has had a reputation for community standards. I don't like an HOA. I don't want to live in a neighborhood with an HOA. I don't have a problem with a historical district as far as what you're signing up for. When we purchased our property, it wasn't before a historical district was initiated. So that being said, I don't have a problem adhering to certain standards, but it should be the choice of the homeowner, ultimately. If you buy a house now, you know that you're buying a house in the historical district. So yes, you are held to those standards. But because I did purchase it before, I don't feel that I should be forced to comply to standards that I did not agree with when I purchased my property. We've made a lot of improvements on our house. I haven't lived here my whole life. I grew up in North Carolina. I've only lived here 13 years. So I understand everyone that has lived here, they want to see what they've invested in, but I also, from a standpoint of I moved here for a specific purpose, I don't want to see that go away as well. And I do love this neighborhood. I walk the neighborhood. Certainly all your concerns, you know, as a council member, I don't hear people say things because nobody comes to meetings. You have one person who thinks they're the mouthpiece for Greenhills.
And I haven't been there
But
for
don't
months.
let her. We want to see positive things. We want to all work together.
Jennifer, I think you should be talking as a resident and not as a council member.
Thank you.
But I'm both.
But not in this circle.
But I would like to see everyone in the community be more positive and work together.
I agree.
And I think that as a resident and a council member, and you know, I love this community. I've put myself out there to try to serve the community, and I also own property here that is important to me. I don't know. I'm disappointed that the negativity is so bad, but I just think that we can all work together. I think that it's a little early for legislation at this point because I think it's a little disorganized. And I think that, you know, we can all work together and make standards, but it's coming together in meetings like this and voicing your opinion the right way that helps. So.
We've only had one venue.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Anybody else?
question, and this is the lack of my understanding of, like, the way local government works. You mentioned a couple different times that you would have to consult with a historic, I forget what's the wording you.
Consultant?
Consultant.
Yeah.
Is that, I'm assuming that consultant being paid, correct?
Oh, yeah. They would be, yes.
So is that, and again, excuse my ignorance, but I want to know the answer. I'm paying as a taxpayer to pay her to tell you how to
Absolutely.
properly fix, like, how to paint and things like that, correct?
Not the small things, but on
I
bigger
mean,
things,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Okay.
It would be paid with general fund money, I suppose,
Okay.
unless we were able to get money
Do
through
we
the
have,
state
like,
for that.
Can Greenhills as a community see, like, what that looks like, maybe, or what that estimation might be for that type of cost? Because that's important too, I think.
Yeah, I have no
It's in
idea
our
right now, but-
documentation from meetings, whenever we approve any, I'm not saying it shouldn't maybe be called out and put into a
Yeah, or
package.
something.
But it is there, because we have to disclose the money and where it goes, and we've clearly said
This is
this
part
is
of
for
the
this
guidelines. We
service.
have to.
Right, I mean, they're good questions, I don't think we should be
Yeah.
apologetic at all.
It's like
Right.
something's eating something else, is eating something else. and
I understand
just
that.
Trying to feel like I'm
A-
paying
a-
someone.
And this is not something that, we just arbitrarily decided we need to hire. It's part of the federal guidelines that we have to hire somebody.
And it was a recommendation of the state as well,
Is this the
so.
person that works for Glendale?
Beth?
Yeah, it's Beth
Yeah, she's been
Sullivan.
our
We've
consultant,
invested
but
tens
she
of
might.
thousands of dollars to her since 2005. She's made a bundle.
She,
from
not
She
really.
does realize though that like Glendale, the residents are not in the same necessarily
Yes,
economic.
yes.
standing
Yes,
as
yes.
we do.
And
Yes.
going forward, she will probably not be the person,
Okay.
but she is right now.
Okay, thank you,
Mhm.
thank you for
You're
letting me
welcome.
kind of interrupt.
No problem, no problem.
Good evening, Neil White, resident of the Historic District, a plant healthcare professional. I serve on the tree board. I say those things so you give my opinion a little bit of credence. But people have talked about a number of things. I thought I'd elbow my way in. Concerts on the Commons, Jim Miller does an exceptional job, ridiculously exceptional. Nobody could do better than him. But I've noticed the last 2 Wednesdays, not Jim and not the musicians and anyone else, but concert goers have taken it upon themselves to park on the Commons.
Yep.
That is, rather than walk across the street, they'll park there. That is detrimental to the trees. Turf may recover. The trees will regress, and they will die, probably tragically, as they topple over because there'll be no roots to them. I don't know if something can be done about that, but it is in a historic district, and it's a historic district meeting, and I live there, and some things bother me that don't bother other people. But I think it's an important task. We've got a big investment in our trees here, and I'd rather live in a community with big, healthy, majestic trees than have a minor inconvenience of walking across the street.
I know in times past, Jim has allowed somebody to come up and unload the speakers and stuff
That I
like
see,
Right,
and
but I've
Jim's got
noticed
such a
there's
hard
way more-
time.
there's way
I'm
more
not gonna
vehicles
fuss
than
about that.
ever before.
But no, these are concert goers, and one time I thought maybe the one, 2 times, last 2 times.
There've been too many.
It's a serious issue, and if they drive on the sidewalks, they will probably tell you the sidewalks are not made for vehicles either.
Agreed.
Thank you.
That's a good point.
Agreed.
Yep, thank you.
Anybody else?
I just didn't want to ask from back there. I'm Jamie Sexton. I am in the Historic District. And I'm new. I bought my townhome a year ago, but I've lived here for several years. It's one of the safest neighborhoods. I walk my dog at night because of the hours I work. I did just start my own business a year ago, so I'm building that as well. And some things I don't always have time to do in building my own business. I'm a mental health therapist, so I'm building a practice. My responsibilities there take up a lot of time. What is required for me to apply to put a shed in my backyard? If I'm going to put something to store my lawnmower that is now currently sitting on my back porch because my previous landlord didn't have that option, do I have to apply for that and then wait for it? That is an extra thing for me to do that I don't have time to do sometimes. So I feel like, I know that you said things can't be black and white, but there are some things that seems silly for me to have to ask to put storage in my backyard for my lawnmower.
Isn't the difference the foundation, whether it's a
Oh,
cement
well,
foundation?
whether, I think if it's
Location.
200 square feet or less, you
Okay.
don't need a building permit, but you should always start with a zoning determination, which is just a form where we're, that's where you identify where will the shed go and how many feet. It needs to be at least 3 feet from the back and side property lines.
I was just going to buy it at Costco.
That's it.
Yep.
Okay.
And put it
that's-
in the
that's
backyard.
perfect.
Like,
It's-
but those
I-
things aren't in here, and I don't know where to find those, being a new resident and a new
Sure.
homeowner in the area.
Okay.
Where do we find those? Can we attend the meetings you all have, and how do you send that out? I don't read the newspaper typically because I do a lot of things online for that, so where does that come from, and how do I know how to be a part of those things and be present for some of those things? If I make an application to change something on the outside, how long does that process take? And do you all keep in contact with me? The only contact I've had with any of you all was, I guess, Bob. And previously, I got a notice about trash cans in the front of my house. So when I called, the first thing he told me was I was subject to possibly go to jail or a fine. And I was like, first of all, I don't own, so you should reach out to my landlord. Second of all, and he said, we built fences for you to put your trash can behind. There's a window well behind the fence you built. Where did you want me to put my trash can? In the window well? Like, so these are things, and then he called multiple other times when my landlord had called him, when my landlord had talked to him, when he knew who my landlord was, and then he was very rude when he stopped by my house one day and I was on my way out to work. So that's my experience working with some of you all, or the representative for you all.
Who was?
Bob. That's all I got was Bob.
Bob.
So,
We have expectations that everything's handled professionally and courteously. And that's not
If I can give you my card, if you want to email me, I'll email you everything you need. Okay.
I appreciate that.
All right, anybody else? All right, I'm gonna, okay. Go ahead.
sorry.
Yep.
I do want to add our meetings are on the village page, right, on the calendar?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would they be on the billboard that's out on Winton Road to remind people? Other communities do that.
It's on Tuesdays,
Well, nevertheless.
No,
we
but
can
the
remind
second and the
people that.
fourth.
I mean, it's like
find
Springfield
it.
Township.
a Greenhills Village page?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And you're welcome to email us too. We have had members of the community that'll reach out and email us, and we've all responded, to my knowledge.
Oh, I don't.
Any email I've gotten personally, I've responded.
As of, aye.
Yeah. Rachel.
Okay.
I got
Sometimes
you.
they don't work.
My name is Eben Taylor, and I've attended the last community meeting that you got, or village council meeting that you had. I can't speak for everybody else as far as getting a response back in emails, but you have been vigilant about being proactive and responding back. My question, actually, I didn't know that there were specifications for what needed to be zoned on your property, because when I did read the notice, I almost kind of read it that this was like a final decision for tonight. And I did have a contractor come out and look at the backyard of my property because I want to get the fence taken down and I would like to get the backyard cemented. I am a property owner and I struggle with having any lawn, people who own like or a contractor for landscaping to come out and mow my backyard because they're not making enough money off of me. I don't really own that much land back there. So they'll come out once and they won't come back after that. On 16 Falcon Street, and I did provide you guys with screenshots because when I went onto Google Maps, I could still see that there used to be an accessible driveway for the residents who lived at the top of Falcon Street that has now been grassed over. So if I did want to get cement put in the backyard, I don't know how a contractor could get back there with a truck. So now that I've been aware that there's a form that needs to be completed, I will go ahead and do that. But I don't want to keep looking at my backyard. It looks a mess. I want to get it done and taken care of. And I'm looking to get things started in the next 2 weeks. So I would like to have something that's outlined, or we can access it online with like a turnaround time. What's the turnaround from once I submit the zone, like the form, you know, things like that. Some clarity would be nice. I know that you guys you should be probably familiar with my name because I keep asking about parking. What are we gonna do with the parking situation? I know that you guys are looking at costs for permits, and that you said that you would, and this is only for certain streets. So for those who own homes that are not called out in that email, you don't need to worry about that. But Falcon Street in particular was one that we discussed because the issue is a lot of the people who live there are renters. And I said this to you before, people who are property owners or who are renting, they don't live on Falcon Street. Sometimes they're not going to show up to these community meetings, and half the time the people that they rent to, it's like 6 or 5 people who live in there. They don't care where they park at. They'll park right in front of, you know, my door, some of my neighbors' doors. I raised up the example the last time we had a resident. She came back from the grocery store, and she had no place to park. Why would she park up the street to walk down and bring her groceries? And she's a single mom. I'm a single mom. I just got into an altercation with someone who is a tenant just because I kindly left a note that said, please be mindful of the residents that live on the cul-de-sac, that we need to have a place to park. And she encounters me into a full-blown argument, cussing and yelling, kicking and screaming. I shouldn't have to deal with that when I come home. So that's what I meant when I said to you that the altercation that took place, because even my neighbor came out to, you know, defend me, but then they got into it. Like, I don't, this is not, like, you know, when I come out here, I like Greenhills. I ride through on Junefield Street. It's nice, it's pleasant. And I get to 16 Falcon Street and it's like,
I can't stress enough that we are empathetic with you all for the parking issues, and it's something that we are in constant communication about. As you've kind of witnessed here today, unfortunately, when we try to put something out, there's always going to be some sort of pushback, and people don't realize that there are citizens that are bringing these matters to our attention, and we're trying to be proactive. We're trying to be reactive to issues that are brought up. And even in our last council meeting, which all of our council meetings are also published on YouTube and on Waycross Media site, but we had some members of the community that were appalled at the idea of doing permits. So I don't know how much Yvonne can speak to it, but we have been talking about other options too, and we're continuing to talk about it.
Yeah,
so
I was against the permit because
you don't take care of, turn them into parking spots. Parking lots.
And I brought that up too because the back, so apparently the back area, it's just now a green space, but one of the residents told me that it's owned by Great Parks. I don't know how true that is, but
there's not enough room in the front.
But yeah, that's just a suggestion, so.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the village engineer, or the engineer that the village uses, is looking at that area that was formerly a parking area.
I just have one question. We have a sinkhole embargo. I'm just wondering if anybody's ever done.
Oh, okay. Yes, I would like to, I wish I would have brought the map, because Waterworks is again acting like it is not theirs. Today we're asking them to show us what drawing they're looking at, because the storm line is probably a good, maybe, I'm a bad judge of distance, 30 or 40 feet away from that. It's not even close to our lines. So we don't understand why they keep insisting it's not their hole. And somebody has an update back there.
My name is Andrea. I live on Burnham Street as well. I live at 30 Burnham, so I can pass by Burnham to go to my house. I called Cincinnati Waterworks at the end of last week and explained the situation that the sinkhole had been there for like X amount of time. And at the time, they didn't have a current work order in. But at the end of last week, they said that we would open up a new work order and they would have someone out to Burnham Street in 24 to 48 hours. So then over the weekend, I noticed they actually had the 3 cones.
The new cones up?
The new cones up, because they did have somebody come out and look. And I called back yesterday to get an update, because I noticed the difference with the cones and the tape. And they said that they did come back out and they did confirm that there's no current active leak, that they have now referred the to their contractor to get the pavement redone.
Okay, interesting.
So,
Good.
and then I asked them how long will it take to get that done.
Mhm.
At the moment, they don't have an exact timetable, but someone's supposed to be calling me back, so I'll follow up. But I just got that update yesterday.
Great. And another one, I'm sorry, just real quick, another big pothole's been at Bradner. It's been covered with steel plates, if you've seen those. It
That
just
was
got fixed today.
Finally.
Oh, my God. That was like pulling teeth.
6 months, 7
Dude
months?
kept insisting they didn't do any work out there. Anyway, it got fixed today.
Okay.
So it's really a long process dealing with the
Those are the
utilities.
kinds of things I think what everybody's saying to tell us about, put it on the website or, because sometimes
Yeah, we
I
could.
think we all think is anything you can, you know, like.
Right.
Really and seriously, like, let us know.
Mhm.
Yeah, there are things that we see and grumble about every day that we go by, and we're counting on others to get it fixed.
Because it's their responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
I would like to thank everybody for coming in tonight and expressing their opinions. I've been in Greenhills a long time and have seen changes, but I think, you know, we've always had issues with certain properties, whether it be an absentee landlord that doesn't care about his property or just somebody that doesn't see in their property what we would like them to see in their property. But the town has done quite well. Units are still selling very well in Greenhills, and Greenhills is still in demand for some people to come here and live in this community. It's still, as she said, a safe community, a walkable community. We try to keep up with all of our trees. We try to keep up with the weeds, but in this time of year, the weeds grow better sometimes along the curbs than they do, and the grass than it does out on somebody's front yard. You'll see later, even with all the traffic on Winton Road, we end up getting grass and weeds growing along the curb. That just happens, and it's been going on for 40 years. We try to address it, but the service department is limited in some ways in how much they can do and get done at this time of the year, like the tree trimmings and some of those things. They're now out painting lines on the streets and to get ready for the kids to go back to school, freshening the town up that way. Go ahead.
I just also wanted to mention, and originally I thought the suggestion, but it actually came later from Dave about the trimming of the sidewalk heights. That saves a tremendous amount of money for homeowners because, as you know, you're responsible for what's in front of you, but we've been doing that, and I know that was just recently done today, I believe, or yesterday, or
What, some of the trimming?
on Hadley, the actual.
Planing the sidewalk.
The planing the
Oh,
sidewalks.
yeah, they
that
just
kind of thing.
started the
And then-
final phase.
Yeah,
Right.
and then another thing is, I'm a real, and I think we all fall in this category, we want to live by a code of respect. And we live here too. We are not here to take down the place. We are here to really do what we can to benefit the community. It's not easy, it's not always clear sometimes, but one of the top things I feel that we should be doing is having respect, even if it's something we don't agree with, and you're confronting somebody about laundry on their front porch or whatever, it still needs to be handled professionally. You can call up at the office if somehow the communication is not falling into that area. We don't know. You know, we hope that it's being handled professionally and respectfully, and sometimes it's not. If that's the case, please let us know. But we have I think still, the foundation of this community it's got real strong foundation. Everybody can mess it up, we can mess it up, but we can also make it better, and that's our intention. We're not perfect, but please speak to us and talk to us. We do what we can to try to address it if at all possible. But I do have a big issue with zoning. It's something that we bring up on a regular basis. It is a headwind. We have more renters than I believe we ever had in this community. I'm not faulting renters. There's lots of people that take care of their property, owners and renters alike. There's a lot that don't take care of their property that fall in those categories. So we'll just keep pressing on. Please keep speaking to us and keep in mind that we are for the community.
I just had is there any way to, because I'm a walker too, and I know the houses, is there any way online that we could submit that? Is there?
There's email. I mean,
Well, I meant like a
Yeah, if they see
form.
something, just,
We have,
A link on the services page.
Right.
On the Greenhills website, we put a link in a few years ago.
Okay.
Right.
So you just click on that and you can submit your service request or whatever you want to do.
No, I meant like.
a code issue. Yeah.
A code issue.
Right.
Code.
Right,
but
right.
You can't see the front door because there's trees
Yeah.
and bushes.
Correct, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
There is a link for
Get them,
that.
we get them through that all the time. Yeah, feel free.
Hey, I have a comment. I have a notebook here. Anyone who would be interested in volunteering to be on the inspection team, that we can go street to street. and-
thanks.
Folks, thank you for your input. We appreciate it.
And you can stay if you want to spend more time with us for the rest of the regular meeting. Thanks a lot.
Good job, Brompton.
Okay, yeah. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Oh, do we have to?
Okay. Municipal manager, this is reports of municipal officials. Municipal manager Yvonne Kovac.
I don't have anything prepared, sir.
Oh, okay. Law Director Jeff Forbes.
Thank you, Mayor. No report tonight.
Clerk of Council Teresa Lawley. Okay, anybody to report for the chief?
Myself.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I will start off by saying James Howard has been appointed as the new Greenhills Police Chief, replacing current Chief Neil Furtleman. He currently serves as the Chief of Police for Delhi Township. Chief Howard will assume his new duties on September 1st and will work alongside Chief Furtleman during a brief orientation and transition period. Officers completed active shooter training last month over a period of 8 training days during June and July. Our patrol officers completed scenario-based active shooter trainings alongside Forest Park and fire personnel. Don't forget, we have National Night Out 1 week from today, Tuesday, August 1st, from 6 to 8 p.m. Join us for a free meal and just hang out with us for the night. I hosted a self-defense class on July 15th. We had a couple participants in our class that is available on a biannual basis. We got another 5-star Google review, so people are really liking it. I will put out there when the next class is available. Something I'm very thankful for is we have ballistic shields were required for active shooter situations. Stories of active shooter situations are in the news every day, and these incidents are occurring in both larger and smaller cities and towns. To ensure that our officers are protected as possible in these situations, the department acquired 5 level 3+ special threats tactical shields. These shields are rifle rated and provide quick deployment and effective protection from threats. This is an absolute wonderful addition to our police department. Every cruiser is outfitted with one. If you check in our updates, you'll see a picture of what they look like, the size of them. This was very important to me because our bulletproof vests are actually not rated for rifles. And you'll notice in a lot of active shooter situations, it's usually an AR-15 or something of that nature. So to be able to get these shields, and special thanks to Yvonne Kovac, our municipal manager, this was just, it absolutely warmed my heart. So I could get emotional about it, but very thankful for that. All right, last thing, we'll go over the statistics here. During the month of June, the department made 15 criminal arrests, including charges for theft, disorderly conduct, failure to comply, violation of protection order, animals running at large, and failure to appear. We responded to 189 incidents, including 33 squad runs, 16 parking complaints, 9 animal complaints, 9 domestic trouble runs, 7 trouble runs, 7 lost dogs, 6 suspicious persons, 6 places found open, 6 intrusion alarms. We provided mutual aid in 13 instances, issued 34 traffic citations, 44 warnings, and investigated 5 traffic crashes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? I mean, all right. My report is I've got Mayor's Court checks to be issued. State of Ohio, $1,386.50. Hamilton County, $43.50. And the Village of Greenhills, $4,829.06. And like I said earlier, while the crowd was here, I think it was a good turnout, and we've got a lot of good comments, and we no doubt will hash over a number of those comments. All right, reports of committees, Recreation and Cable Television, Rachel Hudson.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Okay. Service.
I want to ask Rachel to please keep it in mind when you're ready for the Harvest Fest. I can help you as much as I can.
Okay.
I would like to be on board on that.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Service and Streets, Jennifer Osmonoglu.
I promise I'll keep my comments short. I just want to thank the Streets and Services, or the Maintenance Department for the new lines, the parking lines. They look great in the streets. And we'll definitely, we need to have a meeting probably soon for the Streets and Services Committee. So we'll definitely address the concerns of the citizens that were here tonight. It was very helpful feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, I have something for Mrs. Montague. If you don't mind, I was approached to check on the area where approximately where 614 Ireland is, and the problem that there is on a double line for making a curve turn and having parking on that area. There is a resident that was very concerned about the one coming one direction, the other one, the double line in there that you cannot go, and having cars parked on the one side. So I haven't had, I just got
was
this
the
one
address
today.
again?
Huh?
What was the address again?
The address is 614 Ireland.
Okay.
And it would concern also
It must be
was-
like 114, I think.
Maybe
There's
114.
like
Maybe-
614.
Okay, maybe 114, okay, I thought it was 614. I just heard it, and I,
Those numbers are high.
yeah, I probably transposed that.
Yeah,
But
well,
the
that was a
concern-
result of a study that was done by Jane.
But the
Former manager.
concern was the beginning of the school year and 2 buses trying to go through there, and the parking on that side as well. So,
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah.
throwing it to Streets and
Yeah.
Services then.
Because
Okay.
that's been like that since 2009, something like that.
This is
It's
what
the
I
first
was
I've heard.
addressed on today.
Yeah, okay.
Jennifer, I was walking here today, and they started the shaving on my street. Of course, the ones right in front of my house exceed that limit, but it was nice. I do like the
It makes a
shaved
huge
sidewalks.
difference, because I walk
Yeah.
at least every other day, and it makes a huge difference.
We'd
I
like
got,
to have them
I got a
go
few
back
houses
into
down, and I noticed it, so I had to walk back to double check.
And the
Yeah.
Ashby Park areas where one of
So-
the people was talking about they couldn't walk through there.
Quite a mess.
Okay. All right, Community Development, Jeff Holder.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We met on June 29th, and one of the recommendations is, since we did it during the 75th, was to bring back the hot air balloon. And then, did you have success contacting them?
all lined up.
Great. So that's, what's really nice about that is a lot of people can participate. It also is a big signal on Harvest Fest that something's going on. It's easy when you're going by not to see that something's happening because of the distance, but the hot air balloon tends to draw a lot of people in, so I think that's going to be a great benefit. Just a reminder to the community about signing up for One Call. You know, that I assume I know there's a fair amount signed up, but those that are new to the community, you can call the office and be put on the One Call system. It is reserved for important information, so we don't do the smaller news information, but it is a way to get more informed about the community. And then we'll be getting ready for our next round of beautification efforts. But that concludes my report.
And they may need your car to help hold the balloon down, so.
Yeah, they are using cars to hold it down, and we'll have to negotiate who goes on the cars.
I nominate my husband's truck.
And there you go.
Oh, okay. All right, Safety, Melanie Hermes.
No report at this time. I am looking forward to working with the new police chief, so we'll get something set up with the committee once he gets aboard.
Intergovernmental Affairs, Laws and Rules, Maria Walther.
Whenever we have a safety meeting, we'll have the laws and rules together, so we are planning perhaps for August, some date in August, maybe before the actual meeting of council. Okay.
That would be a good night. That's going to be a really action-packed night.
The 22nd?
Uh-huh. There's like a lot going on that night.
Okay.
Okay.
But since he doesn't get, his first day isn't until September 1st, so maybe we'll do it the September 26th meeting.
That's a good idea.
September 26th?
Mhm.
Okay.
Since his first official day of work won't be until September 1st.
Okay. We can do it also on the work session, if that will be any better.
Possibly. I would have to talk to both the chiefs.
Okay.
We typically do it on a council meeting day since
Okay.
they more likely to be available those days.
Okay.
Okay. Finance and Audit, Jack Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The monthly general fund report was delayed due to vacations, and so we'll have both the June and July reports at the August meeting. You may have seen in the emails that the state audit for the years biennial 2021 and 2022 is underway, and they do plan to submit their report by September 15th. And we'll see you next month for the rest of it. Thanks.
May I make a comment to the village manager? I just want to say that the Grounds Pro had done a tremendous job. They also have taken out the long stems at the edge of the curbs, like where the bus stop is and all that. And those are hard to get rid of. They're working very hard on that. Also, our maintenance department has done an excellent job also with the trees, the pruning of the trees, and then also the painting of the lines. They have been working very, very steadily on those things. So kudos for everybody that is doing that.
Thank you.
And actually, the service department is down one employee now, right?
Actually, two.
Two?
Temporarily.
Oh, wow.
Okay. All right, and this would be the time for residents, non-residents to make comments regarding legislation, but we have no legislation tonight.
Okay.
So we have no new business, no unfinished business. So do we have any other comments from council members?
I did have one question about the trees that were taken down. Did we have those taken down, the large oaks along the side, or was that the school's responsibility?
Those were ours.
Okay.
And
Yes.
sadly, they were approached on one that was theirs. They didn't take it down, it fell down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was on July
'Cause I
4th.
know we're trying to
Yeah.
keep up with it, and that's not a
Right.
cheap endeavor to take.
No, it isn't, and then the big ones along Winton Road, we just need to.
And these look like they need bags on them, the new ones they just planted there.
Oh, okay.
Pretty big.
Oh, well, then, yeah.
All right, anybody else? Any other comments from council members? Okay. Municipal calendar?
Cooking with Cops.
August 1st.
Night
August
out,
1st.
August 1st. That's next Tuesday.
And what time is that?
6 p.m. Oh, my apologies.
Oh,
6
no.
p.m. to 8, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right, nothing else on the calendar? Okay, now is an opportunity for residents and non-residents to appear before council regarding any issues. This is the time to comment on matters before council. When recognized, please come forward to the podium, complete the sign-in sheet, verbally indicate if you are a resident of Green Hills or a non-resident, then state your comments. If you have questions, the questions will be recorded and referred to the manager's office for a response. This will allow time for thoughtful and thorough consideration to be given to each question. Council meetings are recorded for ease of transcriptions. Comments are limited to 4 minutes. Speakers may not yield any or all of their time to other speakers.
Hello again, Monique
Well, hi.
Mason Halter, Greenhills resident. I pretty much covered what I wanted to say earlier regarding HR 3557. And I provided that information to you so you could review it. And I am asking again for you to contact Warren Davidson, our Congress member, and ask that he oppose this bill that will affect our community. If I didn't stress it in the beginning as much, this affects our bottom line, if for no other reason. To be concerned about this, I'm going to repeat this again. The bill limits all local fees to a local government's objectively reasonable costs, which, unlike the current FCC rules, the local government must justify based on a complex rate-making formula. Oh, let's see. It empowers providers to install facilities where they choose regardless of local zoning, thus eliminating the ability of local government to balance providers' and neighbors' interests while jeopardizing the capacity of local governments to impose reasonable standards. I basically copied and pasted a lot of the information that I printed out and gave to you. So, I guess I don't really need to repeat it again, but I did want you to really consider, if nothing else, how it will affect the village's bottom line should this legislation go through. At the last meeting, I also asked that you all consider individually or as a council writing to our legislators to ask that they contact the Federal Communications Commission regarding the 2021 court order that was filed in favor of the petitioners who sued the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, for not updating wireless radiation standards since 1996, despite scientific evidence of harm submitted to the agency. We did receive another letter that was sent to the FCC from P. Scott Lips, who is not from our district. So I encourage you to write to everyone in our district, if you would. And if you do receive a letter or a response, I would appreciate you sending it to me, because we're keeping track of these letters, okay? So we have 3 so far from Ohio lawmakers, but they are not in our district. Lastly, in addition to asking you to take action against HR 3557 and contacting our legislators about writing to the FCC, I'm asking again that you strengthen the Greenhills Small Cell Facilities Ordinance. Other Ohio municipalities have passed more protective ordinances, and our ordinance does not fully protect us from the irresponsible placement of wireless facilities, both 4G and 5G, and the installation of unneeded and unwanted infrastructure that will reduce our property value, affect our historical district, affect safety. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
You need signatures on this flip side, or how do you want to do this? Are we supposed to sign in?
I think, yes, that's the process of signing. Thank you.
First place, we can see first place.
Good evening. It's nice to see that everybody's here, except it's kind of sad to hear that Chief's leaving. So nice to see you sitting in for him. I'd like to shift gears a little bit. I know you've recognized that over the years I've made a lot of effort to bring things to your attention. Sometimes you didn't like the way I phrased it. And maybe that's appropriate that you feel that way towards me. But at the same time, Green Hills has always been at the bottom of my heart and what's good for Green Hills and good for the residents. And I apologize for whoever's toes I've stepped on in the past, because sometimes if you're going to be a public official, you need to get your toes stepped on. So I'll take it coming back this direction too, Jennifer, so I'll take whatever.
Fairly stepping on people's toes would be nice.
Right. So anyhow, with that in mind, I'd like to bring some things very calmly to your attention. A number of people referred to the trees that tend to be, for this to be a tree city, that are in disrepair, that are public trees, and some that are hazardous that are on public property. Also, people brought up over and over that we have a tremendous amount of building code and peeling paint violations here. We realize that the village is limited in what they can pay employees to do. With that in mind, what I'd like to suggest to you is that I am personally aware of a number of residents who are gifted, like Neil Wyfett in trees, Terry Trinan with buildings. There's other professionals that I think would be willing to volunteer time to assist you to get on top of some of these small matters. Because until you embrace that responsibility and demonstrate that you care, it's hard for us to feel connected. So right now, I got the impression that very few people here tonight feel connected to you, and that's sad. The suggestion that I made earlier, and I believe years ago I did a survey on this. This may have been when Jane was here, so it may have been before your time, Yvonne. But apparently, a number of villages or cities or whatever have a format that when a complaint is filed, it is a public complaint. It is something that gets on the website. It's assigned a number. There's a response that's given there as to a timeline when you might be able to address it, or if it's something that the county should look at. But it's a way of providing feedback to the population in general that you care. Because right now, if you rely on someone to call Yvonne and they don't get a hold of her, or a new person that moved in here who's been here like 3 years actually told me she's tried several times to communicate with the manager, and her way of putting it is, she's just not very nice. And, you know, people think I'm not very nice, but I've accomplished a lot in my life, and some of it times you have to be a squeaky wheel. So I think that these parking permits, you need to take in consideration the effect that's going to have on property values. How are realtors, someone's going to have to disclose this. It's not something that a purchaser can just get dropped in their lap right off the bat.
You do realize that's for one street, right?
What I'm saying, it's a cautionary for wherever this goes with you guys. So what I'm saying is that any property, there is something in a real estate contract, I used to be a realtor for many years, you are required to disclose. So if there's a disclosure that's required as terms of a permit, I believe that should be in the real estate disclosure. The other thing would be, if you are limiting anyone that's purchasing in any of these 400 plus properties, there needs to be a disclosure, an attachment that's given to the realtors so that any prospective buyers know what kind of a mess they're getting into.
Okay.
And I think part of the...
Your 4 minutes is up.
Okay, so the last question is...
The parking thing is still way up in the air.
Yeah.
We don't know
Well, that's
yet what
good.
the outcome.
And real
who wrote
estate
these?
people do know when they're in the historic district, they call, just find out status of guidelines, ask about them. It's
And
no,
disclosures
it's
are
no
the
surprise.
responsibility of the homeowner. I work in real estate as well.
Right, but it should be something that is noted as a discussion, just like you have, let's say, lead-based paint, any of those kind of things, because this is a dramatic impact on the financial aspect for a new buyer. I want to
you have
know
anything
who
you
exactly
Okay,
wrote these guidelines.
Call for
Because it looks
meeting.
like they were written by a
Meeting is
10-year-old.
adjourned.